Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Wholeness Project, a live broadcast where we just come every Monday, 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time Zone to just share on strategies, techniques, and intervention that can help you regain your wholeness. We're living in the times where so much emotions, feelings, struggles, and challenges in our daily lives are beating us down. We're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling distressed, we just a lot of things aren't going right in our relationships, in our families, with our mental health, even in our spiritual spaces, even to talk about our workplaces and our businesses. We are burning out, we are stressed out, we are emotionally drained. And so the wholeness project is targeted to addressing four pillars in our lives: the pillar of your family, your relationship. So it could be you're in a marital relationship, you're in a business relationship, whatever kind of relationship you find yourself. Then also your mental health, in terms of your mind. The state of your mind is very critical for you to make the kind of progress and advancement we desire in life. Our mindset matters. Then also spirituality. A lot of people, our spirituality is a strong foundation that helps us to build resilience to overcome the struggles and the challenges of life. And so today I'm going to be sharing an amazing subject with us on self identity and identity crisis. And so, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to follow me, like it's always my culture, my tradition. I love to just share knowledge in a way where I can use a lot of information, a lot of slides to help you to understand what I talk about. So today, again, like I said, the Wholeness Project with Joel Osebo, we are going to be sharing on what I call who am I. So, in other words, I'm going to be looking at deeply into our self identity and the issue of identity crisis and how it impacts our family life, our relationship, our mental health, and our spirituality. Before I go, I always want to do this. Just get to let you know who I am. Again, my name is Joel Osebo. I'm a certified mental health coach, and also I'm rounding up with my master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I'm going to be a licensed therapist. Also, in addition to being a mental health coach, I have subspecialty in crisis and trauma, and also premarital and marital facilitation. So I help couples, I help people dealing with a lot of crisis, trauma, grief, and loss. Then also I'm a certified faith-based counselor. I'm also a cybersecurity governance expert where I try to fuse how technology impacts our mind. And also, I'm a member of the American Counseling Association, also the Maryland Mental Health Association. I have over 7 years plus experiences, just working alongside individuals and couples who are facing trauma, anxiety, grief, relationship struggles, and more. Bring a lot of authenticity to the platform, and also show quite a lot of empathy and pathway of how you can regain hope. So, in other words, you're just looking for someone you want to talk to, a coach to talk to, who can walk you through your journey of mental health challenges. I will be there to walk with you. And so, quickly, today's session, I'm going to be looking at this remit on what is self identity. We'll look at four components. We're also going to look at the numbers. Numbers don't really lie. I believe in statistics. There's so much going on there when it comes to the struggle people are having with their identities. Then also, I'm going to look at what is an identity and what causes it. Then the impact on family, relationship, mental health, and spirituality. Then, like I said, I always provide you with strategies. I'll provide you with techniques and interventions to help you deal with any specific issues that I speak about on a weekly basis. So we're going to be sharing some CBT tools, that's cognitive behavioral therapy tools, that can help you deal with the issue of self-identity and identity crisis. Then another strong practical tools that I also use is called the DBT. DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy, where I'm going to be sharing on some skills that you can also use to deal with the issue of self identity and identity crisis. Then, lastly, for as many who are interested, I'm going to be sharing some roadmap on faith based integration, how your spirituality, so you can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be a Baha'i faith, you can be practicing Judaism. Spirituality has a way of helping you deal with the issue of self identity and identity crisis. And so, quickly, the question I'm going to ask, and if you can put it on the chat when you are asked, what does self identity means? So, if you can put it on the chat while I go on with the question, you can just type it out there. We're going to go through it at some point. So, what is self identity? Self identity is the conscious recognition of who you are. Who you are. Do you recognize who you are? Quite a lot of the time, people just beat down on themselves. We beat down on ourselves because of our struggles, our challenges, our failures. We really, really beat down on ourselves when things aren't working out for us. But when we talk about self identity, it's about the conscious recognition of who you are, your values, your beliefs, your personalities, your roles, and sense of purpose that make you unique and irreplaceable. What makes you unique? What makes you irreplaceable? That's what self identity is all about. Until you and I were able to figure out these things, we are going to be struggling in life, in making progress, in making advancement. So, my goal with this session today is to help you and I kind of revisit what our values are, what our belief systems are, what is our personality, what is our roles, what is our sense of purpose, and what makes me unique, and what makes you what we call irreplaceably you. What is that one thing that you can do? Because if you can identify that one thing, or even two, or max three things that builds your confidence, then you're going to struggle with self identity. So, just a quick recap there. When you talk about self identity, we're looking at your values and your beliefs. And what does that mean? What you stand for and hold to be true. So, your value keeps you grounded. The values and the beliefs you have, they help you to retain your self identity. Then also your roles and relationships. So, what's your role as a parent, as a partner, as a friend, as a professional, as a child of God, for those who integrate spirituality? This helps you to build your self identity. Then, number three is your personality and traits. What are those your natural abilities? How do you think? How do you feel things? How do you show up in the world? A lot of the time, many of us show up to people helpless, hopeless. We look so rickety, haggard, withdrawn. The way we show up matters. When you know your self identity, friend, I'm telling you, you show up bold, with boldness, with confidence. And that's what people look at when we show up. When we show up to the world. Then number four is your purpose and your calling. This helps you build your self identity. Why were you made? And who are you? What you are, and here to contribute. So if you and I can settle in our heart what we are made to accomplish, what we are here to do on earth, what we have to contribute. A lot of the times, when you feel you don't have anything to contribute, it demoralizes you, and it leads to a lot of self-esteem. My goal today is to reinforce. My goal today is to remind you who you are, to remind you that you're a man, you're a woman of value. You have roles, you have responsibility. Your personality and traits matters, and your purpose and calling is very valuable. Quickly, like I said, numbers matters. And here I want us to quickly look at what I call numbers don't lie about identity crisis statistics. 60% of Americans experience an identity crisis at some point in their lives. And when you look at it on a global scale, I can tell you up to 70%, 80% of the world population will suffer from identity crisis. Then 72% with mental health. In America, about 72% of people have mental health struggles, not to talk about on the global scale. So they say their condition directly impacts their sense of self. So when people are dealing with mental health struggles, it impacts their sense of self. Then 62% have unresolved cases. So 62% of people say that they have unresolved cases with identity issues, experience chronically low self-esteem. A lot of people are suffering from low self-esteem. Then 43% say that they have inactive crisis. That is, they are currently going to crisis. So 43% of adults in an identity crisis struggle with depression or anxiety. And that number is huge. United States is over 330 million people. So you can imagine 43% of 330 million people dealing with crisis issue that leads them to depression or anxiety. Then 50% spiritual seekers experience an identity crisis related to their faith journey. That is big, People are still struggling who God is. Does God really exist? Am I here on purpose? So a lot of people are dealing with this identity crisis. Then also 29% of trauma survivors, they say their traumatic experiences have caused an ongoing identity struggle. So people who have experienced accident, experienced war, experienced rape, experienced abuse in so many different ways, it causes them to doubt their identity. So identity crisis is a real issue in our world today. And here today, I just want to present to you what can help you deal with all of those identity crises that you might be having in your space. Then also, what is an identity crisis? We've talked about what self-identity is. Right now, we're looking at what identity crisis is. An identity crisis is a period of deep uncertainty and confusion about who you are, your values, your beliefs, your purpose, and place in the world. It is not a weakness, it is a crossroads. I needed to highlight that. A lot of the times when people have identity crisis, it looks as if you're weak. It looks as if you're not, there's nothing, you don't matter. No, that's not the reality. You're just dealing with some issues. You're dealing with some issues of value, some issues of belief, some issue of purpose, and also trying to find where you fit in our world. It is not a weakness, it is just a crossroad. In other words, you are just at a T junction about to make a great decision. And I hope that today you will be able to make a great decision about your identity as you make progress in life. Now, there's a quote from Erickson, a very big psychologist, said that coined the term to describe a turning point, a moment when the old story of who you are no longer fits and a new one must be written. In other words, when we come to identity crisis, we're saying it's time for you to redefine who you are. Anytime you get to the point you are struggling with yourself, you're struggling with your life, your goal, it is time to just define who you are. So when we talk about identity crisis, what it can feel like to a lot of people is like confusion about your core values or beliefs. So when you are struggling with your core values, your beliefs, then identity crisis is there. When you are feeling lost, disconnected, or not yourself, then identity crisis is creeping up. When you are questioning your relationship and life roles, identity crisis is coming up. Then uncertainty about career, faith, or the future, the tendency to doubt yourself steps creeps up. Then a deep sense that life has lost meaning or direction. And this way a lot of people are. A lot of people feel there's no meaning in life, there's no direction in life. They are dealing with identity crisis. And I'm here today to let you know that it's only a crossroad. You can make it to the other side. But what it is not. Identity crisis is not a permanent state. This season will pass. So anytime you get to a point where you're feeling as if there's no direction, there's no meaning, you're overwhelmed, you're drained, it is not a permanent state. A lot of the time we tend to make it a permanent state. No, it is not a permanent state. It is just a season. And we always say this season will always come to pass. And it's also not a sign of weakness or failure in life. That you are having an identity crisis, that you are dealing with an issue, you are dealing with a traumatic situation of failure, a limitation that is causing you to doubt yourself, your belief, your purpose, your place. It doesn't show a sign of weakness or failure in life. I say that's the beginning of a new phase in your life. Then identity crisis is not a reason to give up on discovering who you are. That you are dealing with an issue, that you are overwhelmed in your family, in your relationship, in your business, in your career, it does not mean that you should give up discovering who you are. Through identity crisis, we build resilience, we build character, we build capacity to move on. Then also something that only young people experience. No, it is not what only young people experience. Older people experiences it in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s. You still have adults experiencing this. Then also it is not unresolvable. Healing and clarity and possible. In other words, what I'm saying to you that we can beat and overcome identity crisis. And that's what the Wholeness Project is all about, to provide that platform, the strategies, the interventions, the techniques that you need to deal with any form of mental health struggles in life. Then what causes an identity crisis? What causes it? I have some few things listed here. Trauma and loss. When people experience abuse, experience grief, experience divorce, when they experience betrayal, when something fundamental is taken away, we question who we are without it. I've experienced that. And I'm sure a lot of us know what I'm talking about. When you experience a trauma and a loss, it causes you to doubt who you are. Then it's also another cause is major life transition. So when there's a job loss, when there's a retirement, when there's a parenthood, when there's illness, when there's emptiness. Emptiness means when kids are no longer there. When transitions forces us to re-examine the self we knew. There's a part of you you've always known. There's a past of you wish will continue. But when there's a major transition to the next phase of your life, it can cause us a lot of identity crisis. Then cultural and social pressure too. 54% of Americans feel their identity has been challenged by societal polarization, racism, and belonging struggles. That's true. So cultural factors and social pressure can cause people to doubt their identity crisis. Then faith deconstruction. 50% of adults exploring spirituality experience of faith release identity crisis. Shifting beliefs can feel like losing a foundation. This is true, family. And my goal today is to let you know, yes, with faith, faith should actually help you build a great self-identity instead of leading to identity crisis. There's social media and comparison. Constant comparison online rewires self-perception. We lose sight of who we are and begin performing who we think we should be. This leads to a lot of identity crisis. Then toxic relationship. When people are in abusive relationship, when you are codependent or you're in a controlling relationship, it slowly erode your self-identity. That's why sometimes we always encourage, please just check out your relationship that you want to go into with people. Establish boundaries. If you don't, they have the potential of leading to identity crisis. So this is very, very important. These are some of the causes that leads to identity crisis. I hope so far you've been learning from this, you've been gaining some stuff from this. And if you are, please, on our Facebook page, on my YouTube page, and also on Instagram, you can just give me a liking and also try to share this video with other people. And for those who are just joining us, we're talking about who am I? We are exploring self-identity and also identity crisis today. And so I'm going on to the 4 areas where identity crisis and self-identity really impact. So impact on the 4 pillar of wholeness. When your sense of self is shaken, every pillar feels it. That's true. Here is how identity crisis cripple every area of your life. These are the 4 major pillars I focus on. We are deliberate not to even talk about finances because we know that when these 4 pillars in your life are in good order, it automatically affects your bottom line. So the first pillar I'm looking at here is family. When there are issues of self-identity and identity crisis, it impacts your family. So when you don't know yourself, you can't be fully present for your family. Identity confused parents unconsciously pass down shame, conditional love, and role confusion to their children. So when parents, father and mother don't know who they are, when they struggle with their identity, it just goes down. It affects their children. So that's why this subject is very important. Then in relationship, 65% of identity crises are triggered by relational trauma. You can't fully love someone else if you have lost yourself. Codependency is identity crisis in disguise. So in other words, if we are not healed from previous relationships, when we're going to new relationship, it can affect and can impact negatively on the relationship, even business relationship, spiritual relationship, community relationship. If we can't truly love ourselves, it's difficult to love other people. And when we are depending on other people for our victories, for our success in life, that is identity crisis. Another area that the identity crisis and self-identity impacts is your mental health. 43% of people in identity crisis struggle with depression or anxiety. 62% develop chronically low self-esteem. Mental health healing requires identity clarity. So one of the quickest paths to your recovery, to healing, your journey, when you're going through, you're seeing a therapist, you're seeing a coach, you're seeing a pastor, or you're undergoing pastoral counseling, it is important that self-identity, it brings some clarity to you. So your mental health, when you know who you are, you're 50% on the way to recovery. Then lastly, on spirituality, 50% of adults exploring with spirituality experiences faith-related identity crisis. Who am I before God? Maybe the deepest identity question of everyone. People don't know whether God loves them, who they are in God, what are they here, but is there anything about God? So spirituality sometimes can cause a lot of self-identity and identity crisis. But at the same time, we've discovered that spirituality helps to build your self-identity and gives you that resilience, that strength to overcome issues on identity crisis. So pillar number one, when you don't know yourself, your family feels it. How? Identity confused parents or consciously pass anxiety, shame, and role confusion to their children. Blood family boundaries arise when we haven't defined who we are, so we can't define where we end and others begin. Children of parents in prolonged identity crisis show high rates of anxiety and insecure attachment. Healthy parenting requires self differentiation, knowing where you end and your children begin. Then also, the family becomes your mirror. It reflects the image you hold of yourself, accurate or not. So, in other words, this is a word for parents. For those who are out there, you're planning your family, you want to start up a family, I want you to understand that the way you see yourself, the value you develop, your belief system, your confident level will always impact your children. It will affect your family because your family will mirror what you are expressing. Your self identity is your children will mirror it. Your identity crisis, your children will mirror it if they are not exposed early to healthy behavior. So I'm encouraging every family out there, every father, every mother, every young man and woman that wants to have their family. You have to build your self identity. You must know your value. Otherwise, it's going to impact your family negatively. So the question I want you to reflect on here is this: am I parenting from who I am or from who I'm afraid I'm not? So a lot of the time we are scared for our kids not to do some mistakes, not to perform some mistakes. Why are we doing that? It's because within us we are scared to be that. So what we are saying in when it comes to parenting style, who do we want to be? Who are we? We are mirroring because our kids, our children, the next generation, they're going to mirror who we are. So we have to pay attention to how we build our identity, manage identity crisis. When it comes to relationship, you cannot fully love someone else if you have lost yourself. You cannot fully love someone else if you have lost yourself. In other words, loving yourself it brings health, it brings strength into your relationship. 65% of identity crises are triggered by major relational events. So whether it's divorce, infidelity, betrayal, or loss, that's the reality. Codependency is often an identity crisis in disguise. My identity is defined by how much you need me. That shouldn't be it. Couples infidelity repair requires both partners to rebuild, not just to trust, but individual self-identity. So for couples who are dealing with infidelity issue, because I do quite a lot of couples counseling and I'm also a couple repair specialist. What that means is when it comes to repairing your marriage, when you're dealing with a divorce situation or rather an infidelity situation, your sense of self-worth is very important in the process. Because what happens a lot of the time when your spouse, goes out to cheat on you, it affects you. It affects your sense of self-worth. You begin to wonder, am I not good enough? Is it that I'm not beautiful? I'm not handsome? I'm not this? I'm not that? And it impacts your self-identity. So one of the quickest path to healing for couples who are dealing with infidelity issue is how you can regain your sense of self-worth in the process of healing. 53% of women report on setting self-identity after major life events like childbirth, reshaping every relationship. That's the truth. Then healthy intimacy requires two whole people. Partial people cannot sustain full and lasting love. In other words, the man and the woman need to have very healthy self-esteem for their relationship to work. So, a quick thought for reflection for you is: are you in a relationship to feel whole or because you are whole? So, you don't go into a relationship, you don't go into a marriage because you want to feel whole. You go into it because you are already whole. Because if we are depending on others to make us whole, then we're going to miss the mark. We're going to be heartbroken. So it's better as we're going into relationship, whether premarital relationship, we're going to marital relationship, or any other form of human relationship. Make sure we are going into it with a healthy sense of self-worth and self-identity to avoid identity crisis. Now, when it comes to your mental health, an unclear identity is a mental health crisis waiting to happen. So if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you are about, it can lead to a lot of mental health struggle. 72% of people with mental health conditions say their illness directly impacts their sense of self-worth. 43% of adults in identity crisis struggle with clinical depression or anxiety. 62% of people with unresolved identity issues experience chronically lower self-esteem. Identity confusion, not knowing who you are, is a clinical risk factor for personality disorder and self-harm. This is critical because if you don't know who you are, you will fall for anything. You anything can just happen to you. You just run with things. Then both CBT and DBT begin with self-concept work. In other words, the techniques that I'm going to be sharing, the practical tips I will be sharing, they help you to do a lot of self-concept, help you to do a lot of self-thinking for you to overcome any mental health struggle. Then in terms of your reflection, I want you to, is your mental health struggle a symptom of a deeper identity question? So because we need to do all this thinking to make sure that we are not hurting our mental health. Then spirituality, the deepest identity question is a spiritual one. And that's true. A lot of the time, we want to explore our spiritual identity. 50% of adults exploring spiritual experience a faith-related identity crisis. Spiritual identity answers the most fundamental questions. Who am I before God? And why was I created? Faith deconstruction in terms of that questions, belief, church, or doctrine can trigger the most profound identity disruption. Without a spiritual anchor, identity is left to culture, trauma, and circumstance to define for you. So what I'm saying that spirituality can build you the solid resilience you need to overcome identity issue and crisis in your life. Scripture speaks directly to identity. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, for those who are believers, who are Christians, that's a very popular scripture that helps to manage self-identity. But I also want to talk, I was at a training last week, Friday, and I was talking about healing religious trauma. A lot of people are hurt religiously from their religions, from their religion, from church, and so many. But if you have a good self identity, I'm telling you, you can overcome any challenge in your life. All right, quickly, now we go into some of the strategies, interventions, and skills that you and I need, to deal with all of these things that I've been talking about. So if this has been, you've been learning from this, I just wanted to give me some thumbs up, subscribe to my Facebook page, my YouTube page, and also to Instagram. You're going to get more results. And also we're going to do a replay of this in the week for as many that are not able to join us this hour. Then CBT tools for identity, how you can use cognitive behavioral therapy to rebuild who you are one thought at a time. And so what is that? So when it comes for you kind of reconstructing your self-identity, it's about what you think, because the CBT principle is hinged on change how you think about yourself and your sense of identity will follow. In other words, when you change the way you think, you see yourself, I'm worthy, I'm fruitful, I'm productive, I'm empowered, I can achieve my goals, I can do the things I desire to do. When your thinking process changes, your self-identity follows. So there are a few things you can do. One of them is called cognitive restructuring. It's called the 3-column identity audit. So number one, write the negative identity belief. Number two, write evidence against it. Number three, write a balanced true self-statement. I'm going to do a live workshop on this for a lot of people that might be interested. I'm going to send out that message soon so that we can do a practical aspect of how you can cognitively restructure your self-identity. Then there's another one we call behavioral activation. So you're going to act your way into identity. Sometimes people say, fake it until you make it. That is behavioral activation. So your identity is partly built through behavior, not only discovered within. Schedule one identity aligned action daily that reflects your values rather than your fears. So you want to ask, if I knew exactly who I was, what will I do differently today? Then do that one thing. So in other words, we're saying you can, through behavioral activation, you can reshape your identity. The things that you used to do that makes you to feel low self-esteem, feel poor, feel bad, feel unlovable. Change that behavior into something that helps you for people to love you, for people to appreciate you. That's called behavioral activation. There's what we call value clarification. So here is about you designing your core value exercise. So I want you to do this. List 20 values, narrow to your top 5. Ask, are my daily decisions aligned with these 5? Your identity is most stable when your actions and values are aligned. In other words, your values define your self-identity. So when issues of identity crisis come, because you have some top five solid value, you will never feel below yourself. I'm telling you the truth. So, what I want you to do right now, I know we don't have enough time, but just do that. When you come back to watch this again, just write top values right now and post them where you can see them daily. Those five value that drives your behavior. Another tool, like I said, I'm going to share as I'm going to get gradually winding down is the DBT tools for your identities. DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. Accept who you are and commit to who you are becoming. This is very important. First, you must know, okay, this is who I am right now. Why am I feeling downcasted? Why am I feeling this identity crisis? Accept that reality of that individual. Then what you need to do next is now start working towards becoming who you truly want to be when it comes to building your self identity. So these are some practical skills for identity work. So the DBT principle basically says you can accept who you are right now and commit to growing. Both truth coexist. So who you are right now is the truth, but who you want to become is better, is a truer concept. So there's what we call mindfulness. So the first thing about mindfulness, you want to observe without judgment. There's what we call the what skills. You want to look at yourself without judging yourself. A lot of the times, what truly makes us begin to suffer identity crisis is we judge ourselves wrongly, or we think that people are judging us wrongly. No, don't do that to yourself. You know, a prodigy was sharing yesterday, and she said that's what we do. Somebody might just be thinking about something else, but we just begin to think that they are thinking about us. No, a lot of the times we just misconstrue what people are thinking or saying. So observe without judgment. So practice observing your identity without labeling it good or bad. So look at yourself. Don't label yourself bad. Don't label yourself good. Just observe. Then in crisis, we catastrophize confusion. Mindfulness says, I am noticing uncertainty about who I am, and I can sit with it without it destroying me. In other words, we want you to do a 5 minute daily journal. Today, you notice I am this. You just notice what's going on in your space. There's what we call radical acceptance. Accept the crisis without approving of it. So, whatever is happening right now, okay, accept it, but I don't approve it to be the reality of my life. That is what this skill will help you do. So, radical acceptance is not resignation, it is acknowledging I'm in an identity crisis. This is painful and it is survivable. In other words, you acknowledge what is going on, but you also remind yourself that you can get out of this. So this is very important. So sometimes you can say loud, like, I accept where I am. I don't approve of it, and I will not stop here. In other words, you are not approving what you are dealing with right now, but you know where you want to get to. Then there's what we call the opposite action. Act as the person you are becoming. In other words, when shame says hide, identity healing says show up. A lot of the times, this is what we call opposite actions. When you want to do, you want to withdraw because you are bitter, you are angry. Opposite action tells you, no, come out, be bold, just be who you are, don't change who you are. So when fear says stay silent, opposite action says speak your truth. So with opposite action, we are asking you to do the opposite of the negative thing that is going through your heart when you are dealing with identity crisis. There's some quick life practice how you can ground yourself right now. Right now, these are things I really want you to do. So there's one thing we call grounding exercise 4 5 4 3 2 1 adapted. So what I want you to do, even after this session, or if it's something you can quickly do, name 5 things you value about yourself. Not what you do, but who you are. What are those 5 things that you value about yourself? Name it. Then the number 4, then secondly, name 4 roles you play that matter deeply. What are the 4 roles that you play? Are you a parent? Are you a friend? Are you a worker? Are you a child? Name it. What are the 3 people who know and love the real you? These people, whether you perform or you don't perform, they know you. List them down. Then name 2 experiences that significantly shaped who you are becoming today. What are those experiences you've had in the past that is shaping you today? Then name 1 thing about your identity right now that you are proud of. I want you to screenshot this if you can. Screenshot this. And I want you to go through this exercise. I'm telling you what's going to happen to you. This exercise is going to rebuild your self identity, then also cripple every stronghold of identity crisis in your life. Then, for faith based integration, for those who want to integrate faith based into this process of healing, regaining your self identity, and breaking the stronghold of identity crisis, what God declares about who you are. This is important. I know a lot of people are not believers, a lot of people are not Christians, don't practice Judaism or practice Islam, but I want you to extract these principles extract this principle because it's going to help you in the process of your transformation. Your identity according to the scripture. This is what the scripture says about you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are a child of God. You are a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. God has great plans for you, for your future. You know what? When you go through scriptural verses like this, for as many who wants to integrate, faith-based faith-based perspective or principles, they remind you of God's thought. For me personally, not trying to put my beliefs or my values on you, I believe that I draw my strength, my identity from who God says that I am and the work that I do, and my passion as a coach, as a counselor in training who wants to help people regain wholeness in their life. That is where I build my self identity. And so when there's any identity crisis that comes up, that shows up anytime, I use what God says about me to quickly address it to overcome the struggle in it. So these are very powerful scriptures and so many other scriptures that can help you, integrate into your process of building your self identity and destroying the power of identity crisis in your life. Then also some faith-based practical steps for identity renewal. You have to renew your mind daily. So in other words, we talk about your mindset, your thoughts become things when we start talking about the law of attraction. So it's important that your mind is renewed daily, that you also pray your identity back to God, who God says you are, praying back to him, because it's always going to be exchange of grace and strength between you and God. Then find community that sees who you are becoming. So in other words, be among people, be in a company of friends and relations, in a community of faith that sees who you are becoming, and they strengthen you, because isolation deepens identity crisis. Every time you try to withdraw from people that should be a blessing to you, to support you, or people that should naturally be in your space, it can cause a lot of identity crisis. Then write your identity declaration. So with this, I want you to do, you can also screenshot it. So for example, I put my name. I am Joel. I am called to do this wholeness project. I'm not defined by my failure, by the death, by the failure, by the limitations in my life. I am God's. So you begin to declare God's declaration over your life. Then you read it aloud every day for 21 consecutive days. I want us to do this. For as many who practice Christianity, who believe in the message of the cross, I want you to screenshot this. Write your identity declaration. Just screenshot it and do this for 21 days. I'm telling you, you're going to see how that is going to renew. I'm going to screenshot it. I'll put it every day, every morning, every night before I go to bed. Every morning that I wake up, I'm going to declare my identity declaration, praying it back to God based on what God has called me to do with the Wholeness Project, to see that many people are renewed in their mind. They have renewed focus, and they have restoration. They are restored in their wholeness. Now, some quick 7-step identity renewal roadmap for every one of us. Acknowledge the crisis without shame or self-condemnation. Journal your values, your narrative and life story. Challenge your negative identity beliefs. Practice opposite action. Anchor in scripture and prayer for those who are integrating faith-based. Seek support, either coaching, therapy, or community. Commit to daily identity maintenance. This is very important. These 7 steps, as we practice it, they will help you overcome they will help you strengthen your self-identity and break any stronghold you are having concerning identity crisis in your life. I know at this time I take quite a lot of questions, but because our time is fast spent, if you have any question, I want to encourage you. You can send a mail to joel.osebo@fragranceofgrace.org, and be rest assured that I'm going to respond to your questions. So whatever questions you have, whatever presenting issues, whatever challenges that you are dealing with, just know that the Wholeness Project with Joel Osebo, we're here to practically help you, to restore wholeness in your life and to renew your focus in your family, in your relationship, in your mental health, your spirituality. And we will go with you through all of the journey and the struggle that you are dealing with. Then also quickly remember this: you are not lost, you are becoming. So if you're struggling with your self-identity, or there's an identity crisis, always remember this: you are not lost, you are in the process of becoming. Identity crisis is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of the truest chapter, the one where You stop performing and start becoming. So this is very important. This is very vital. So what I want you to do today, your quick next step, complete the identity grounding exercises where we talk about those 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 1 stuff. Write your 21 days identity declaration. Then you can also book a coaching session with me. You can go to joeloseba.com. You can also send us email at joel.oseba@fragranceofgrace.org, or you give us a call at 443-949-9815. I want to thank you for joining me today in this episode. Next week, same time, 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, we are going to be back again talking about different areas that can make you whole. But if you have a specific subject you want us to talk about when it comes to family, relationship, mental health, spirituality, please also shoot us a mail, send us a mail. We'll be glad to go through those process, bringing you real life strategy, intervention, and techniques that will help you deal with any life related issues. Thank you once more for being part of this. I look forward to seeing you again 9:15 a.m. And don't forget, we're going to replay this on Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m. 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time Zone, so you can find time to watch it again. You can also go to my YouTube page, Joel Osebo, and you see the previous episode that we have held. Thank you so much for being part of this. This is Joel Osebo, your friend with the Wholeness Project. Bye for now.